Hi, this is Kenneth Wong, Senior Editor for DE. Welcome to another episode of DE Podcast. In June, The Verge reported the pandemic has made it harder to buy a new laptop. In the same month, when we spoke to analyst John Petty from JPR, he alerted us of the same phenomenon.
There was a brief period of time in the United States and in England in particular, and parts of Western Europe, where the retail shops were completely depleted of their laptops. Everything was sold. So that had a very surprising and delightful effect for the retailers in the early part of this. Obviously, a lot of mail order business took place as well.
So we wonder, as people transition working from home indefinitely, as some businesses start to reopen cautiously, could we be looking at a mobile workstation shortage? Would the pandemic make it harder to get a machine suitable to run SolidWorks, AutoCAD, ANSYS, and COMSOL? There are just a handful of leading workstation brands, literally a handful, because if you count them, you would need to use more than one hand. One of them is Lenovo. Here is Rob Herman, General Manager, Executive Director of Workstation and Client AI Group.
From what we've seen so far since the February-March timeframe, things have really settled down. We didn't see a dramatic disruption in supply. Obviously, we saw a big rush for mobile workstation products early on, but honestly, the supply chain has really settled down, and I think that really has a lot to do with the small scale of our business. In a lot of ways, the components that we use are very specialized to the workstation, especially graphics cards. But even the high-end storage devices or the Xeon CPUs, higher-end CPUs, I mean, those are shared with server, but in that regard, we didn't see a big gap in the supply chain. Typically, the supply chains run very tightly, regardless of what the economic situation is. So we've managed to stay on top of it. I expect that, the other players in the industry have as well.
MacroFab, a distributed digital manufacturing service provider, works with many of the same suppliers in the laptop market. Here is Misha Govshtin, CEO of MacroFab.
I personally wouldn't worry about laptops being in short supply. We obviously saw supply chain disruptions earlier in the year. I think the peak of delays that we saw sourcing from our global supply chain, and we order components from all over the world, including China, Taiwan, other parts of Asia, including United States. And we definitely had trouble getting product early on in the pandemic. But I think for the most part, most factories have adjusted, and most factories are now running at almost full capacity. There's still slight delays, but I don't think they're affected by factory shutdowns. In fact, I think it's the logistics delays now. So nothing is not flowing. It's just things are flowing less evenly than it used to.
As a digital manufacturer working in bytes and pixels for the most part, MacroFab has certain advantages over traditional manufacturers.
Yes, MacroFab is a digital distributed manufacturing company. And what that means is that we have a network of 50 factories in North America, but our production is digitized, which means that our customers interact with our digital platform and they work through our software to find factory capacity anywhere in the North American continent.
But even so, the company still has to deal with the realities of physical production, where social distancing is now a mandated requirement.
MacroFab primarily works with essential businesses, and these are companies in the industrial, aerospace, and defense segments. So we were considered an essential business, and we never shut down during mandated shutdowns. And it was relatively easy for us to adjust because we have a large facility. So what we did was we pulled out all the non-essential staff, and we made sure that we kept our production team, as safe as possible. And We heard the same thing from the 50 factories that we work with. They very quickly adjusted their procedures. What we have to do is be diligent. The number one concern I have is that the team lets their guard down, and it's really more about just the fatigue that comes with a change in social behavior for so long. So we every single week remind them of what it needs to be, and we mandated wearing masks indoors long before they became mandatory in various parts of the country.
Businesses usually have buying cycles called hardware refresh cycles. How might the pandemic affect these upgrades and purchases that the workstation vendors count on regularly for revenue? Here's Rob from Lenovo.
Some workloads like ANSYS and like SolidWorks will require the latest technology. So regardless of what's happening out in the marketplace or in the economy and where people are working, those types of end users are going to need the latest technology to get their work done. And so for those types of customers, I think we'll see the normal life cycles of technology. For maybe end users that are doing more pedestrian 2D or basic 3D graphics, customers might decide there to go ahead and use their current technology and stay with that for a while.
Businesses cannot stay shuttered for years without serious financial consequences. For engineering firms with many employees working from home, there is a hardware quandary to solve.
We see that certain decision makers out there are weighing their options. Whether it be taking all the kit home, say it's a higher end or a mid-range desktop workstation, actually taking that home and having their end users work from home, or replacing that desktop with a very high-end mobile device. Obviously, there's going to be some limitations there. And a third option, as you mentioned, is remote technologies. Within the last 6-9 months, we launched our ThinkStation P920 rack, which is a 2U dual socket rackable workstation, and along with software like Mech9 TGX software, who's our partner on remoting software. We're able to provide a solution for those customers looking to remote in.
For Misha and his team at MacroFab, this is what the new normal looks like in the production environment.
So we daily take temperature readings. We ask people to describe their symptoms. We've dramatically ramped up the degree to which we help our employees with healthcare, and even if they have the slightest symptoms, even if it's a headache or even just a little bit of congestion, we ask them to stay home, and we make sure they're not worried about burning their vacation time. So a lot of it is about making it easier for them to do the right thing. And obviously, once you get indoors, probably the biggest change is that people are keeping distance from each other. The hardest thing has been managing the break room, and that's just a place where we make sure that we only allow 1 or 2 people at a time and ask people to eat outside as much as possible. So some things are hard. Some habits are difficult for people to break. But it took a couple of months, and now everybody is very diligent about it. So what you see is a very different rhythm than you would normally, because people are not congregating next to each other as much as they used to anymore. But it's all starting to look normal, and people are starting to get used to the fact that they can't be next to each other as much as they used to be.
Nobody can foretell when the new normal will end and things will go back to the way it was before the shutdown. Here is Misha's estimate.
We are now in a new normal, and we don't expect things to change dramatically over the next 2 years.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of DE Podcast. Until next time, this is Kenneth Wong for DE, and we are out.